My name is Josiah Munroe. I had just delivered the photos to Gloria Higgins of her husband playing patty cake with his secretary. Business had been sparse as a blind beggar's cup. So I decided to drown my misfortunes over a double whiskey at the Club Mirage. As I downed my second double, my attention was drawn to the strike of a match lighting the cigarette of one Eva Saint Claire. She was a man-eater. Men flocked to her like moths to a porch light on a hot summer night. Why was she in a dive like this? Maybe it was the booze, but my curiosity got the better of me, so I walked over to her. "Hi, Eva." She flinched as she looked up at me. "Oh, it's you," with a trace of disgust in her voice. "Why don't you go find a keyhole to spy through?" She spat at me. I laughed. "Are you rolling drunks in dives now, sweetheart?" When suddenly, the barmaid came running, screaming in the bar. "There's a dead man in the alley," she kept screaming. I rushed out into the alley, and sure enough, there lay a stiff. Johnny Moretti, a two-bit hustler of little importance, except he happens to be the brother of Vincent Moretti, the boss. Nobody dared steal candy from a baby without him knowing. I flicked my lighter as I looked the ace of spades placed between fingers. A calling card, but for who? I put it in my pocket. I was sure Eva knew something, maybe she was even in on it. But when I came back in the club, she had already flown the coop. I made my way back to the bar, nursing my third double, waiting for the fireworks to start. It didn't take long. Lieutenant O'Hara, along with two goons from Homicide, finally showed up. O'Hara, with his eyes narrowed, approached me. "What do you know about this, Munroe?" I tilted my head. "Nothing, O'Hara. He was stone dead long before I got here." Of course he didn't believe me. He grilled me some more before warning me I'd better keep my nose clean. What I got myself into, and if I really wanted to know, news travels fast in this town. What I didn't know then was that Eva hightailed it uptown, right to the office of the boss. "Eva," he said, "you were supposed to meet up with Johnny. Now he's dead. Where's the package?" His eyes fixed on her as he sat at his desk with some of his boys behind him looming in the shadows. As she answered, she sat there waiting for him, and she began to think of what was coming when all hell broke loose. She didn't know what to think, so she came back here. Vincent Moretti's voice became low and slow as he reminded her that he had watched her as a teenager use her beauty to manipulate her way into the underworld, leaving a trail of betrayal along the way. Her rise to power did not go unnoticed, and that their partnership in crime was on thin ice. Now with the package gone and Johnny dead, he wanted answers. I was awakened the next morning by the shouting of two cabbies arguing in the street below. I closed the window and pulled the ace of spades from my pocket. This little card had brothers all over the city, placed in the hands of several dead mobsters. The killings have been going on for months. The police were baffled, as well as the gangsters. Just a calling card. No clues, no motives, just the ace of spades. I was convinced that Eva was in deep, every bone in my body tinged at the thought. But what I didn't know was that I had become a walking target. It had been a long day for Boss Moretti. That morning, he buried his brother in the grandest style afforded to a fallen gangster. Afterwards, rivals, family, and corrupted city officials filled his mansion, expressing their empty condolences. Slowly, they all bid him well as they left, their obligations fulfilled. Tired and angry, he retired to his bedroom, only to find he wasn't alone. There sat Eva Saint Claire. Surprised, he grumbled, "What did she want?" She opened her bag to reveal a tightly wrapped bundle. His eyes widened as he muttered, "The package. Give it to me." She held it up in her left hand and said, "Vinny, don't worry. I'm going to give it to you." Those eyes, cold as ice, seemed to take pleasure as she riddled him full of hot steel. She stepped over to his body as the smell of gunpowder filled the room and placed an ace of spades in his hand. With a smirk spread wide across her face, she slipped out the bedroom window. couple of days later, I was convinced that hanging around here was not such a hot idea. Lying low upstate would give me time to sort things out. I was throwing a few things into a suitcase when I heard the click of high heels coming down the hallway. I opened the door, standing there, clutching a newspaper, trembling like a scared rabbit snarled in a trap, was, you guessed it, Eva Saint Claire. She burst into the room, frantic and crying out that she feared she was next. The headline in bold letters across the top proclaimed, "Boss Moretti falls victim to the Ace of Spades killer." She pleaded with me to protect her, be her bodyguard. Of course I didn't believe her, but I played along. I turned my back on her just for a moment when she took the opportunity to slip a small brown envelope under her cushion. She managed to cry a few tears as she took $1,000 out of her purse. Wiping the tears away, she told me she'd send a car to pick me up later. With that, she left, but the scent of her expensive perfume remained. I didn't believe a word that spilled out of her lying mouth. With all the muscle she surrounded herself with, she needed me like a hole in the head. Upstate was looking pretty good to me. And wouldn't you know it, right on cue, my door flew open, and standing there with the broadest of grin, stood O'Hara, flanked by his goon squad. They started tearing the room apart, as O'Hara slowly reached under the chair's cushion and pulled out the envelope. He stuck his finger inside and lifted it to his lips. Narcotics, he declared. Boy, she was good, played me like a violin. It was all a setup. I bolted out the door. No sooner than I was halfway down the hallway, bullets flew whizzing by. Outside, I slipped down an alleyway and dove into a coal bin. I laid there thinking to myself what a chump I was to fall so easily into her trap. The whole thing stunk worse than 2-week-old Limburger cheese. The odds of getting out of this alive were greater than picking the trifecta at Belmont. But then a way out began to simmer in my numbed brain. If Eva, O'Hara, and whoever thought I'd skip town, maybe the heat would come down. I would wait until the midnight shift change at the factory at the end of the alley. I was sure in the darkness I could slide right in as they passed down the alley. The Army-Navy store halfway down the alley, back door lock had been broken for some time. A quick change of clothes. A quick phone call to Mills instructing him take the limited express upstate. Have him send a telegram in my name to St. Claire telling her that city life is too dangerous, that I'm packing it in. Goodbye forever. Then in incognito, so to speak, I'll blend in with the lowlifes and bottom feeders who know the real goings-on in this town. As with Eva's money still in my pocket, I can buy a lot of wino's liquor to loosen their chapped lips. And fill the pockets of the scum of the street, always eager flap their jaws for the right price. I later learned that when Eva read the telegram, she doubted my sincerity. She sent word upstate that if I was there to find me. Then she looked up at Leonard O'Hara and told him if he wanted his piece of the action, he'd better correct the situation if I was still in town. The chatter on the street for the last few days centered around the disappearance of various barflies and call girls in the middle of the night. But those in the know spoke of the recent rise in overdoses being suppressed by the papers and police alike. Rumors flooded the streets of the girls being used for smuggling heroin into the city. But something else stood out like a sore thumb being slammed by a hammer. The Ace of Spades murders had stopped. Johnny's death, the boss pushing up daisies, and that envelope setup all pointed in one direction. Now it was time to come up with a cute little setup all my own, and it wouldn't be pretty. I sat in the shadow on a comfy suede couch. Knowing I had some time, I got ready for my cute little setup. It didn't take long before the front door opened. When the lights clicked on, there stood, slender, radiant, and dressed to the nines, the perfection of beauty, Eva Saint Claire. moved with the precision of a 17-jeweled gold watch from Tiffany's. She said, "What do you want, Munroe?" "Just you doll face. You see, I know you killed Johnny." Me and a friend of mine had a little chit-chat with your buddy O'Hara. He's one talkative fellow. Told me how you plan to snuff boss Moretti and have the heroin market all to yourself. But you needed help, especially Johnny's. But Johnny asked for a bigger cut, so you killed him, keeping the package for yourself. But there's more. Nobody but O'Hara knew you are the Ace of Spades killer. Nice con, killing off the boss Moretti rivals who might get in your way. Then I came along, picked up the Ace of Spades you left on Johnny's body, spoiling everything. Tisk tisk. Of course, first she tried to bribe me. When that didn't work, she shouted, "You'll never prove any of it. You're just a dirty little gumshoe. It'll never stick." You're right, I'm just a dirty little gumshoe. That's why I recorded my conversation with O'Hara. We were in his car. I tuned the police radio so Al could record it. Want to hear it? All at once, it was over for Eva. I had the goods, and she knew it. In desperation, she pleaded, "Run away with me, or let me pay you. Whatever you want, please let me go." I dropped the needle down on the record and picked up the phone. "Doll face, the only place you're going is up the river until they fry you. I just don't see any future for us." I'd like to say things in this town got better, but they didn't. Sure, O'Hara and Eva got what was coming to them, but it wasn't long before a new crew moved in to grease the palms of officials and cops alike. Some things never really change, only the players. You know, I did spend a little time upstate after everything. After all, I still had most of the grand Eva gave me. Funny she never asked for it back. Unusual for a woman, maybe she just forgot. When I last saw her, she was a little occupied,